Here's Brody Brazil.
So now that the regular season for Major League Baseball is winding down to an end this weekend, a lot of A's fans are wondering what's next when it comes to that relocation vote and the potential of moving to Las Vegas. We've heard mid-November, right? That came out about a week and a half ago, and the commissioner has since commented on it too, but when you really start to put mid-November together on a timeline, I don't know if that's possible or sensible or logistical. Now, I want to say from the start of this video, a relocation vote is going to happen before 2023. I am pretty confident in that. But I initially said more closer to winter meetings, maybe even after winter meetings. I still think that this is not going to happen at the earliest possible convenience, which probably would be those MLB owners' meetings in November. Let's begin with how this all came out. A vote was expected during mid-November with the owners' meetings. That was from the Las Vegas Review-Journal within the last 2 weeks. They were the first, they were the only ones reporting this, and they were quoting an industry expert who needed to remain anonymous. And to be clear, everybody else who was going along with mid-November was just repeating this. So when I say consider the source, I'm not saying that the Review-Journal made this up. I'm saying that they got it from somewhere that wanted the A's to have this vote, that wanted to push this vote to mid-November. But it's not necessarily just up to the A's in this process. There's a lot of things behind the scenes that need to happen. There's a lot of others that need to review the relocation application. It's a process that involves many, inside baseball and out of it. But again, consider the source and consider how this came out. And a lot of people were even wondering, well, is that true? Yesterday, Commissioner Rob Manfred did an interview and flat out said, and I don't even have a quote here, he apparently just said he hopes owners will hold a vote on the Oakland Athletics' proposed move to Las Vegas when they meet November 14th through the 16th in Arlington, Texas. So now at least we have the date and location of the owners' meetings. We knew that the GM meetings would be earlier in the month in Scottsdale. The owners' meetings are going to happen mid-November in Arlington, Texas. But the hope, why the hope? Why can't Rob Manfred set this here and now? And the obvious answer is I'm not trying to create something that's not possible. That's probably the reason why. He knows the process is still ongoing. He knows the review of the application is still going. He knows it needs to be thorough. In so many ways, this cannot obviously be rushed. But it only adds more question into the process to say, well, I hope this is going to happen. He could have just not commented on it at all. But he chose to add in his hope for this. So is he applying pressure to somebody else? The relocation committee, the other owners? Is he setting an expectation here or setting the table for what he hopes happens in mid-November? The hope part. I'm going to say just one more time here. I hope you understand that hope doesn't entirely make sense to me. Don't say anything at all or give a firm date or just be very decisive or not. The hope part, it just goes along with the theme of so many unanswered questions in this process. Mind you, back on May 25th in Milwaukee when he was visiting the Brewers Stadium to kind of see what was going on before they said they needed $500+ million of public money for fixing up, he said back then that an A's potential vote on relocation could happen in June when the owners met mid-season in New York. I'm not trying to rub this in his face and say, well, you were wrong before. I mean, think how crazy that was. There wasn't even public money approved at that point. Well, I think it took place during that 13th through the 15th span, but on May 25th, how could he have known that? The legislative session hadn't even come to a conclusion yet. So he's been wildly wrong before, right? Like there's a huge difference between June and November. And again, I'm not here to say the vote won't happen. That's not it. I'm just saying mid-November seems ambitious. And I'll explain why here starting right now. First off, let's just talk about the overall timeline as I give you reasons for why I think it's probably more of a December thing than a mid-November thing. And okay, let's answer this question. What's the difference? Mid-November, December? I'm just saying there's so much still to be determined behind the scenes with this process, so much we haven't even unpacked yet in going over the review of this that you don't really know. When it's possible, you just don't know. And let me also say, while I'm here, you also don't know how much of this is predetermined. Yeah, they'll go through this procedural process, and they'll go through the application, and they'll go through the committee and the recommendation, and then ultimately a vote. Do the owners already have their minds made up? Who knows? I will tell you this, though. Nothing big happens before the World Series concludes, and also nothing big happens after December 15th. So you're basically looking at the month of November, the first half of December, and that's it. And it is a cardinal rule to never interrupt playoff baseball with bigger news. And I mean things like managerial changes, front office hirings, baseball teams, and you'll notice right after the World Series ends, all of a sudden, their announcements come out in November. They did not want to step on the toes of the playoffs or the World Series. That's an unwritten, or maybe it is a written rule somewhere with baseball. They just don't do it. I will also tell you, in working in this industry, that pretty much nothing happens following the 10th through the 15th of December every year with baseball. There's a reason they have winter meetings in a tropical, warm place at the beginning of December. It's a nice free vacation. You get all your last business wrapped up for the calendar year. Then you get to enjoy the holidays and the new year. And eventually you'll come back for January and February with spring training, but you shut it down for a while. You completely turn it off. So the holidays for this stuff, I know the A's vote needs to happen by mid-January 2024. It's not going to happen in the second half of December. I can tell you that much. Even if it can happen virtually, the vote, which it can, no way that owners and people who are influential, they want nothing to do with this process during their holidays. Okay, so why am I saying that December's more sensible than mid-November? Because 75% of the concept design, that 75% design, is not going to be ready until early November for this ballpark in Las Vegas. From the Review Journal, who seems to have a very inside track on this. At that time, the A's will connect the groups, the two groups that are vying for the right to design this stadium, right? There's two architects. They don't even have an architect for this stadium yet, let alone the concept design, let alone renderings or even blueprints. But they're not expecting a 75% concept design until early November. At that time, the A's will connect the groups with a construction management firm to analyze the designs, the two designs they developed for constructability and cost. Oh yeah, they also don't know if it's possible to build what's being designed or how much that will, actually cost. After that analysis is complete, there will be a final presentation and the preferred design firm will be chosen. And all of this is in early November. So as of right now, let's recap. No renderings, no concept design, no blueprint, no cost, no constructability. But they say they'll have that by November. And if you believe that to be on target and on time, so you're going to get renderings and the design and the choice of this all within 2 weeks and then rush it to MLB and have the owners vote on that. And that's why I'm saying mid-November seems ambitious. There's also this. The A's have said they're apparently down to 3 possible interim sites for their team for the 25, 26, and 27 seasons. We know next year, 2024, they'll be at the Coliseum. What about after that? And that's all considering a best-case scenario of this ballpark in Las Vegas being able to open up by 2028 if approved. So let's go through these 3 options. The Las Vegas ballpark in Summerlin, home of the AAA Aviators. The more we know, and the more that becomes apparent in this process, it does not seem like the MLB Players Association would be on board for 3 full seasons of a major league team sharing a minor league ballpark. It just seems like something that was out there and was possible, and now seems like it is highly not preferred. So I'm not here to officially cross that off the list yet, but it does not seem likely. That leaves you with the Coliseum and Oracle Park in San Francisco, two qualified and bona fide major league venues that exist already. But let's talk about San Francisco. The Giants might seem willing to take in the A's as a bunk bed partner for 3 weeks or maybe 3 months. But you're talking about 3 full seasons to host a team, to have baseball pretty much every day straight for 6+ months. And there's revenue sharing concerns, and how will the field play through that season? What about clubhouses? And so many logistical things that would make it seem like the 3-year part of it alone would kind of make the Giants less interested. I won't speak for them, right? They have their motives, they have their interests, but the 3-year part of it does seem daunting. Okay, so maybe the A's want to stay in Oakland. But is Oakland and Alameda County and the Joint Powers Authority, are they willing to cut the A's a new lease? Or do they want to get moving on the Coliseum site as a project and move forward with it with something else? And what would the cost of that lease be? Certainly not $1.25 million like it is for next year. And would there be that trade-off? If you get to play at the Coliseum for 3 years, MLB would have to guarantee Oakland an expansion franchise. The bottom line is, none of that is publicly orchestrated or squared away. None of it. The Las Vegas thing, the Summerlin thing, the San Francisco thing, the Oakland thing. As I'm looking at the date here of the last few days of September 2023, there's only about 5 weeks left to, make a deal. I do not think it's possible in any responsible fashion to approve relocation without, knowing the team has a home for 3 full seasons. So that's part of this process which has been undefined yet. There's also other issues that need clarity. The private financing. I know it's been worked on. Mr. Fisher has said that there are ways, and that's in the process right now. It's in the works, but I don't know that that has been presented or is complete. Maybe behind the scenes, maybe part of the application, sure. We understand that not everything in this process is public. Is there a media rights deal? What will the A's do in their new television and media market? The, smallest media market of baseball, number 40 in the country. That's Las Vegas. So how would they get that squared away? Nothing has been agreed to or defined. FAA approvals. Now, this is lesser on the priority list, but it's still something that needs to happen, and the FAA can't approve anything with the stadium being so close to that huge airport until they get the designs and the concept and understand, well, what are we approving? What are we giving a yes or no to? By the way, take it from a commercial licensed pilot and flight instructor, the FAA approval is not going to necessarily be difficult, and it's also not about height, really, or location of the ballpark. It has mostly everything to do with light pollution, light emission from that ballpark, and such a close proximity to an airport and a runway environment. At nighttime, you cannot afford to have a bright light source anywhere near an airport or a landing or takeoff environment. And I know people will say, well, aren't there plenty of lights on the Las Vegas Strip? Absolutely. But have you ever taken off there from night? There's a lot of lights, but they're all controlled and they're all actually dimmed. If you really look at Las Vegas at night, it's not a ton of bright, outstanding light sources. And all the ones, the screens, everything is down low to the ground. You're talking about a stadium with potentially retractable roof or translucent roof that could throw a lot of light outside its design. Now, I'm also here to tell you they can design around that. But the FAA can't approve this until they actually see it. How about the relocation fee? Oh my goodness, that's also another huge part of this. Is that up for debate or not? Because if it is, it certainly seems undecided at this point. And that's one of those things where if you're talking mid-November, we're talking like 5-6 weeks to get that squared away. And then last but certainly not least, the $380 million of public money from SB 1 that was approved back in June from the state and from the county, Clark County and the state of Nevada, all of that is legally laid out. But all of that can also be legally challenged. And my point here on all of this is that giving approval to a club to move and then having to backtrack and go back and deal with it later if, in fact, there's something else here that's a roadblock or a sticking point, that is like a worst-case scenario for baseball owners. Trust me, they want to get to this, they want to complete this, and they want to move on from this. I'm just not sure it all lines up for mid-November, and I'm saying early to mid-December because that buys them another 4 full weeks. Again, to be clear, I'm pretty sure this vote is going to happen one way or another, even if there are some incompletes, and maybe that changes the result of the vote. It's like you're going to take a swing at some point. You only get one swing at this, and that's what makes me think as we get closer to mid-November and we see what's lined up and what's not lined up, and there are some external factors here out of everybody's control. I think this is for the A's and for baseball, if you're trying to rush this, I think mid-November is the earliest. And let me just go back to saying that comment by Manfred, the hope. Hope's an interesting one to be using in this here and now. You made it here to the end of the video. You know I appreciate that. Thumbs up down below. And also, don't forget to subscribe to this channel so I can see you back here next time.